Hello. So just a very, very brief introduction. The text I'm about to read is, it's a work in progress, but it's going to be hopefully the prologue to my book, which is on the New York School and architecture. So comments most welcome after the paper. 4 years before her death in 2006, Barbara Guest reprinted her 1968 poem The Blue Stairs in a new anthology of poetry and criticism called Forces of Imagination. The poem appeared almost exactly as it had in the original 1968 collection of the same name, The Blue Stairs, save for the addition of a small textual signpost. Note: the Modern Museum in Amsterdam has blue stairs. As Caroline Williamson wrote in 2008, the poem, quote, apparently refers to the elaborate main staircase of the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam. Williams is one of many critics who have taken Guest at her word. Over the years, I have heard scholars talk about the Stedelijk in university lectures, in poetry podcasts, and in academic articles on the Blue Stairs. So in 2019, I travelled to Amsterdam to see this staircase for myself. Sitting outside a cafe, I make some last-minute notes on the poem. My copy is covered in annotations, words circled and underlined, marginalia dancing across the blank space of the page. By now, my knowledge of these stairs is intimate, though incomplete. I have to see the real ones, I think, before I can understand this poem fully. I leave the cafe and walk along the Keizersgracht Canal towards the Stedelijk. On my way, I pass a small B&B called the Blue Stairs. In the coming months, I will write to this hotel, desperately seeking a connection with Barbara Guest's poem. But I don't know this yet. For now, the opening lines of the Blue Stairs are keeping step in my mind. There is no fear in taking the first step, or the second, or the third, having a position between several popes. In fact, the top can be reached without disaster, precocious. I enter the Stedelijk through the new extension added in 2012, which faces Museumplein Park. There used to be another wing here, but that was torn down some years ago to make space for this newer, shinier addition, which looks, from the outside, like a giant white bathtub. Once inside, I cross the threshold from the new wing into the original Neo-Renaissance building. The old space feels humble. It sits quietly and solidly as years of architectural construction, demolition and alteration have busied themselves around it. As I pass through the galleries, I hardly see the art on the walls. All I can think is that in a moment I'm really going to see these blue stairs, really going to take the first step on them. The code consists in noticing the particular shade of the staircase, occasionally giving way to the emotions. It has been chosen discriminately to graduate the dimensions, ease them into sight. Republic of space. I reach the Stedelijk's elaborate main staircase and I'm struck by a single quality: whiteness. The stairs themselves are a polished off-white stone and all of the paintwork is crisp, pure white. I look for chips that might reveal a trace of blue. The one flake that I find in the otherwise immaculate architecture reveals only foundational red brickwork under years' worth of white paint. A palimpsest of white on white. Radiant deepness, a thumb passed over it, disarming, as one who executes robbers, waving the gnats and the small giants aside, balancing. How to surprise a community by excellence. Somehow it occurred, living a public life. Few naturally occurring things in the world are blue. It is the colour of the sky, the colour of the imagination. These stairs, however, are not blue. So why would Guest have left a signpost to blue stairs in the Modern Museum in Amsterdam if there are none to be found? I ask the museum staff if there are another set of stairs in the building that are blue. Nobody knows of any. So I begin looking in books, in archives, and at photographs. These stairs, I discover, made museum history in 1938 by virtue of their whiteness. The Stedelijk was one of the forerunners of the gallery as White Cube. I find a painting that shows the staircase in its original 19th century colour scheme. Yellow, red and green, with golden daylight filtering through the yellow glass above, but not a tinge of blue. And then in 1938, 30 years before Guest wrote her poem, the new curator, Willem Sandberg, painted the colourful staircase white within a single weekend. I write to Mikhail Nayov, head of Library and Archives at the Stedelijk, to ask if there was ever a set of blue stairs in the museum's history. He responds with the following. I have found no trace whatsoever of the stairs of the museum being blue at any time. I searched the archive on the terms blue and stairs, staircase, etc., but found no reference. The new staircase is white on all the pictures I have of it in the 50s and 60s. There was also a staircase in the new wing, Sandberg wing, but that was blackish linoleum. The Sandberg wing was built in 1954 under the auspices of the eponymous Willem Sandberg of the whitewashing fame. A note on the Stedelijk website from 2011, however, states that in recent years the old building has been renovated and all later additions removed. Could the blackish linoleum that Nayov describes really have been a deep cobalt blue? I discover some images of the main staircase taken in 1974 in which the landings appear to be laid with blackish linoleum. Or is that dark blue? The steps themselves are still white, but it is clear that the staircase underwent considerable reconstruction at some point in the 1970s, because two doorways can also be seen in the 1974 image, cut through the central landing. Looking at my own photographs, only the ghosts of these bricked-up doorways are visible now, while the once blue-black floor has been completely relaid with speckled grey granite. The original design was completed. No one complained. In a few years it was forgotten, floating. It was framed like any other work of art, not too ignobly, kicking the ladder away. Now I shall tell you why it is beautiful. Design extraordinary, colour cobalt blue. I was not satisfied by the 1974 photographs, because the stairs themselves are white, and because the landings could hardly be described as cobalt blue. Could it be that Guest had made a mistake? Had she seen blue stairs somewhere else and misattributed them to the Stedelijk in her note decades later? I scour Amsterdam's other museums, all to no avail. I write to the Blue Stairs B&B, the one that I had seen on the Keizersgracht. I'm afraid we're running our B&B for about 3 years, they reply, so we are not the Blue Stairs from the poem. Months pass. I read about Chefchaouen, the city in Morocco painted blue to symbolise the sky. The thought of blue stairs has become intoxicating. On a trip to Rome a year later, I see the Vatican Museum's Simonetti staircase, a structure bathed in the blue light of its glass cupola. Situated literally between several popes, the Simonetti stairs conform to all of Guest's clues. Secret platforms. Heels twist it into shape. It has a fantastic area, made for a tread that will ascend, being humble, i.e. productive. Its purpose is to take you upward on an elevator of human fingerprints of the most delicate fixity, being practical and knowing its denominator, to push one foot ahead of the other, being a composite which sneers at marble, all orthodox movements. The Simonetti stairs are based on the Vatican's 14th century Bramante staircase, a granite construction, a composite, which sneers at marble, in a double helix shape, an elevator of human fingerprints, which remain hidden to this day inside the walls of the Vatican, secret platforms. Among the Catholic Church's most sacred sites, all orthodox movements. These are not Guest's blue stairs, but that hardly matters anymore, because I've stopped searching for a single set of real stairs and have started creating my own composite out of fragments of whatever blue stairs I can find. And perhaps this was Guest's intention from the start. Perhaps no single set of stairs were ever the impetus for the poem, and the terms code, secret, fantastic, surprise, false, withdrawn, scattered throughout, have encoded the poem's best kept secret, that these textual stairs are no more than a counterfeit of height. It has discovered in the creak of a footstep the humility of sound, spatially selective, using its counterfeit of height to substantiate a method of progress. Reading stairs as interpolation in the problem of gradualness with a heavy and pure logic. Whether deliberately misleading, simply incorrect, or else forever displaced by the fabric of architectural alteration, Guest's 2003 note has had the strange effect of simultaneously asserting and breaking the relationship between the poetic and the architectural. Like Rachel Whiteread's casts of architectural features, including stairs, the poem may, or may not, have drawn on an existing structure, but the textual stairs maintain their own materiality now, independent of architecture's practical reality. Guest stairs are meticulously constructed. They have steps and treads and platforms. They ascend, they have an area and dimensions. They creak, they lead upwards and into dormer rooms. And on the page, they possess a distinctive visual structure. They are stepped like any other stairway. Reading stairs, as Guest writes, we are not asked to simply imagine a set of real stairs, but to take a step onto the poetic ones before us. Because in reading poetry, we don't just observe textual spaces and structures, we activate them. The master builder acknowledges this, as do the artists in their dormer rooms, eternal banishment, who are usually grateful to anyone who prevents them from taking a false step, and having reached the summit, would like to stay there, even if the stairs are withdrawn. A few years after my trip to Amsterdam, I was going over some papers from the Barbara Guest collection when I came across an early typed manuscript of the Blue Stairs. After "the" and before "stairs," a word had been scratched out and replaced by hand with blue. What was the original title? It looked like compulsive or comprehensive, though it was impossible to say. Guest's scribble had overwritten the earlier word beyond all legibility. Whatever this word was, the new document revealed something crucial. That I had been looking for a set of blue stairs that had never existed in architectural or poetic reality. At least not the kind of reality I had been searching for. Because I had been looking for something fixed, immovable, definite. But in the absence of a single set of blue stairs, I discovered many. I stitched together fragments of architecture and poetry until the lines began to blur. The harder I looked, the less material architecture seemed to be, and the more concrete poetry became. It was not that architecture had become irrelevant, but that its relationship to the poem had shifted. The poem no longer existed in textual deference to architecture's concrete authority. Instead, architecture and poetry had begun to speak to one another, as different sets of stairs changed my reading of the poem, and as the poem shaped the way I read the different architectures that I encountered. As I looked at Guest's scribble, I realised that, like the white stairs in the Stedelijk, Guest's poetic stairs are a palimpsest. Like all poems and like all buildings, they have been overwritten, they have been altered, and they have been amended in manuscripts, in reprints, and in the critical work of others. And that's when I found Barbara Guest's Blue Stairs. Not in a poem, but on the page in front of me. I couldn't see them because they were an invisible architecture, as Guest writes in an essay of that name, published alongside the Blue Stairs in Forces of Imagination. But I had already taken the first step long ago. My annotations were my footprints, and I had reached the summit, which was not a blackish linoleum landing, but the spatial promise of poetry, and I wanted to stay there, even if the real stairs had been withdrawn. Thank you.